You thought you broke something inside you. The desire vanished. The fire went cold. Not even temptation makes your heart race anymore. And now the silence is louder than sin ever was. But what if this wasn't punishment? What if Allah didn't strip you of desire to hurt you, but to save you? This isn't just about lost libido. It's about what happens when Allah removes something, to rebuild everything. Stay with me, because what you fear might be a curse could actually be your greatest mercy. You didn't plan for the silence. It crept in after 1,000 whispered last times, after the tab was slammed shut, after the panic, after the wudu that left your face wet, but your soul still shaky. You said it again, Ya Allah, Wallahi last time. 2 rak'ah in the dark, tears on the prayer mat, a heart pounding from what your eyes just consumed. By morning, the urge was back, and by night, so was the cycle. Click, guilt, wudu, promise. Click, guilt, wudu, promise. Until it didn't come back. No urge, no curiosity, not even a flicker. When the usual thumbnail showed up in your feed, you scrolled past it like it was nothing. And at first, that felt like victory. You whispered, Alhamdulillah. You finally beat it. But then the days passed, and the silence didn't lift. You Googled it in private. Lost libido punishment? Deleted it. Typed it again. Am I broken? You stared at the ceiling and wondered, will I ever feel normal again? What happens when I get married? Will I feel anything at all? And that's when a deeper fear set in, not of relapse, but of being rewired in a way you never asked for. You wondered, is Allah angry? Did I break something in myself I can't fix anymore? But here's what no one connects. That ayah from Surah Al-Baqarah, we always use for hardship. Perhaps you hate a thing while it is good for you. Sometimes it's not about life or loss. Sometimes it's about desire. Because when sin keeps burning you, Allah doesn't always cool the fire. Sometimes He removes the fuel. What you're calling broken might actually be a divine shield, a defense mechanism, installed by the one who knows your limits better than you do. So if you clicked on this video hoping for another distraction, this isn't that. No flashy edits. No dopamine thrills. No escape from the silence you're trying to outrun. This is a raw, uncomfortable, sacred conversation for the soul that's confused why it doesn't feel desire anymore, and secretly afraid of what that means. If that quiet in your chest feels louder than any sin you ever tasted, stay, because by the final minutes of this video, you'll realize what you call punishment might be the clearest mercy you've ever been given. Some of you already know this feeling. You weren't deep in sin. You weren't binging filth. You were just surviving. University deadlines, back-to-back shifts, 2 hours of sleep, scrolling through reels between salah, fast food between classes, WhatsApp messages during Quran. Far got missed once, then twice, and before you knew it, even the guilt faded. You told yourself it was just a busy phase, but something deeper had shifted, not just your habits. Your soul. You used to be drawn to things, even haram things, even halal things. There was a pulse. But now, nothing. You feel nothing. No urge. No curiosity. No spark when someone attractive crosses your feed. Not even emotional warmth toward the idea of marriage. And it's terrifying. You go searching for answers. Hormones? Trauma? Is this punishment? Am I broken? But what if the truth is much simpler and far more spiritual? You're not being punished. You're burnout. And when the human body is overwhelmed, it starts shutting down anything that is essential, not as a curse, but as survival mode. And one of the first things to go? Desire. Not because you're defective, but because you're depleted. Sometimes, when your system is on fire, Allah doesn't ask for more from you. He gives you silence instead. So you're forced to slow down, not to punish you, but to protect you. Because the same way your phone goes into low power mode, your heart does too, your soul too. Your urges are paused, so you can finally pay attention to what matters. Your health, your pace, your presence with Allah. The prophet once told a companion, "Your body has a right over you." That wasn't just about overfasting. It was a reminder that even spiritual intentions can turn destructive when we neglect rest. Let's be honest. Some of us treat sleep like it's optional, eat like we're in a rush to die, carry stress like it's part of our identity. Then we wonder, why isn't my desire working right? How do you expect desire to flourish when your soul is just trying to keep you alive? So if your spark disappeared during exam season, or night shifts, or a stretch of nonstop digital noise, it's not random. It's not spiritual collapse. It's your soul pulling the handbrake before you crash into something permanent. And sometimes when you refuse to rest, Allah removes the desire so that you're forced to stop, not forever, just long enough to heal. So before you go chasing supplements, before you panic yourself into a guilt spiral, ask yourself honestly, am I resting? Am I eating real food? Am I praying like I mean it? Sleeping like I actually trust Allah to handle what I can't? Because sometimes the silence you fear isn't damage. It's divine protection. And desire, it will return, not when you're desperate for it, but when your heart, your body, and your soul are finally aligned again. It doesn't happen all at once. You start with vlogs, then a prank video, a quick scroll through a trending Islamic lecture. All good, right? But the feed keeps going. You scroll a little deeper, stay up a little later, and somewhere along the way, the algorithm starts learning you better than your soul knows itself. You weren't looking for haram. You were just curious. A 5-second slow-mo of someone borderline, a trending outfit, a catchy voiceover, and before you know it, micro hits. Nothing explicit, just enough to flicker something, just enough for your heart to whisper, that wasn't clean. But the worst part? You tell yourself, it's not that deep. At least it's not full-on Xena. At least it's not that kind of video. At least I swiped before it got too far. But here's the truth. It is that deep. What starts as innocent distraction becomes quiet destruction. Each swipe fires dopamine. Each micro-trigger rewires you. Even clean content, the filters, the edits, the aesthetics, feeds your cravings without nourishing your soul. And the more you consume, the less you feel. Halal things start to feel boring. Marriage feels like a chore. A respectful rishta message brings zero excitement. Even a compliment from your spouse, it's nothing. You're numb, and you don't know why. This is what addiction does. Even low-grade addiction. It doesn't have to be haram to harm. Every scroll, every click, every artificial high teaches your brain to expect pleasure. That exaggerated, filtered, disconnected. And then when you're offered something real, intimacy without performance, connection without fantasy, emotion without edits, your heart doesn't know what to do with it. This is why the prophets said, from the perfection of one's Islam is to leave what does not concern him. It's not about being antisocial. It's about being spiritually intentional. Your attention is sacred. Your gaze is powerful. Your consumption becomes your craving. And when your feed is filled with pixels that blur the line between suggestion and sin, your soul doesn't stay silent. It suffers, even if your tongue isn't saying it, even if your timeline is technically clean. So if your drive has faded, ask yourself, when was the last time I went an hour without a screen? When was the last time I looked away the first time, not the third? When did I stop protecting my gaze, even in subtle ways? Sometimes Allah lets your desire fade, not to shame you, but to protect you from building your appetite around illusions, because real love isn't noisy. Real intimacy isn't pixelated. Real desire doesn't grow in overstimulation. It grows in presence. So if you want to spark back, start detoxing, not just from the haram, even from the excess, even from the almost harmless clips that have been silently numbing your soul. Unfollow what doesn't feed your Kira. Turn off autoplay. Lower your gaze like it's armor, because it is. And when you finally clean up what you consume, you'll be shocked how fast the heart feels again. But this time, it'll feel clean, calm, and real. You told yourself this time will be different. You cried in sujud. You deleted the app. You blocked the contact. You whispered, "Ya Allah, this time I really mean it." And maybe for a while it was different. You felt strong. The sin lost its flavor. You resisted the thoughts. You pulled away before they pulled you under. But then, life happened. A bad day, a fight, a moment of loneliness. And without fully processing it, the sin crept back in. Just once, you told yourself. But once became everything. And everything came undone. So you repented again. You cried again. And this time, you didn't just feel guilt. You felt fake. But here's the part nobody prepares you for. Sometimes, after real tawbah, there's a strange silence. Not peace, not temptation, just stillness. You don't feel desire. You don't feel much of anything. Not attraction, not arousal, not even curiosity. And you start asking questions like, did I oversuppress something? Did I kill my phaedra? Is this what purity feels like, emptiness? But that silence isn't damage. It's detox. When you walk away from a sin that once fed your desire. Allah doesn't always give you something new right away. Sometimes he gives you space, a pause, a buffer, a moment to relearn desire, without shame attached. The Prophet told us, when a servant commits a sin, a black appears on the heart. If they repent, it's wiped clean. But no one talks about what happens after wiped, because just like a muscle after injury, your heart needs rehab, time, stillness. You're not meant to bounce back into spiritual passion instantly. That rush you're waiting for, it might not come, not because something is wrong, but because something is healing. And this is where many fall again. They mistake healing for emptiness. They panic, and in trying to feel something, they return to the very poison they just left behind. But here's the truth. The version of desire that was rooted in guilt, in secrecy, in late-night dopamine and shame, that version needed to die. So if it feels like desire is gone after real tawbah, breathe. It's not gone. It's being reshaped, purified. The fire didn't die. Allah just contained it. Because when he gives it back, and if he does, it'll come clean, without filth, without addiction, without the weight of your past tied to it. So don't rush the process. Don't chase the old feeling. And don't mourn the loss of a desire that was eating you alive. Trust the stillness. Guard your gaze. Keep your istighfar close. Because this silence isn't abandonment. It's sacred rewiring. And when desire returns, it will feel new, whole, and safe. Not every dip in desire is spiritual. Sometimes it's just human. A side effect, a rhythm shift, a quiet cry from your body that something is off, and it's trying to protect you. But we were never taught to listen. So we panic. We assume guilt. We think, Allah is punishing me. I must be disgusting inside. This is spiritual collapse. But what if your body isn't punishing you? It's repairing itself? Because here's a truth no one says out loud. Hormones don't run on shame. They run on cycles. And when those cycles are disrupted by stress, poor sleep, trauma, medication, heavy workouts, the body pauses what it deems non-essential. Guess what gets paused first? Desire. Not because you sinned, but because your system is on survival mode. I once heard about a brother who emailed someone saying, I haven't felt anything from my wife in 2 months. I'm scared it's my sins catching up to me. But when he was asked deeper questions, he had just come off years of antidepressants. He hadn't slept well in weeks. He was skipping meals, missing vitamins, and running on caffeine and worry. His heart loved her, but his body was exhausted. That wasn't spiritual failure. That was biology catching up to the soul. And this is where Islam comforts and corrects. Allah created your body, not the internet, not your hormones. Him, he says in the Quran. Indeed, we created man in the best of stature. Surah at 1095:4. Your body is not a burden. It's a gift. And when it goes quiet, that doesn't mean it's betraying you. It might be asking for your attention in the gentlest way possible. But we don't notice. We make du'a with dry lips. We seek intimacy while running on 3 hours of sleep. We beg Allah for emotional connection, while starving ourselves of water, rest, and real nourishment, even when the Prophet told us, "Your body has a right over you." He didn't say this as a concession. He said it as sunnah. He ate simply, slept intentionally, and showed emotional presence in his relationships. So, if your drive feels missing, don't default to self-blame. Ask yourself, when was my last blood test? Am I sleeping more than 4 hours a night? Have I mistaken constant digital reaction for living? Do I even slow down enough to breathe between tasks? Because sometimes your heart is willing, but your hormones are not, and Allah created both. Desire isn't evil, but neither is its absence. And the more you honor the body He entrusted you with, the more you'll see that healing isn't about becoming who you used to be. It's about becoming someone stronger, calmer, clearer. And when desire returns, it won't feel random. It'll feel earned. Not every silence needs a diagnosis. Not every numbness means something's wrong. Sometimes the silence is sacred. Because what if the stillness isn't about what's broken in you, but about what Allah is building inside you? There are seasons in life where desire doesn't just go quiet. It becomes irrelevant. Not because you're cold, not because you've given up, but because Allah is training you to see your worth without needing to be wanted. Maybe you've been making du'a from marriage for years. Maybe you've cleaned up your past. You repented. You started praying. You're doing everything right now. And still, no spark, no pull, no fire, just patience. Dry, invisible, exhausting patience. And now you're wondering, is something broken in my fitra? But listen closely. It's not broken. It's being redefined. When Allah loves someone, He sometimes pulls them into a quiet, internal withdrawal, not from the world, but from the need for the world, not to deprive you, but to purify you from the lie we're sold, that your value depends on how wanted you are, that if you're not being desired, chased, complimented, something's wrong with you, that if no one craves you, you must not be beautiful. You must not be enough. But that's not how Allah sees you. This phase, where you feel invisible, untouched, unseen, might be the exact place where Allah is restoring your dignity. You are whole, even when you're not being held. You are precious, even when no one's watching. Think of Prophet Yusuf, the most desired man of his time. Women cut their hands just by seeing him. And yet, in a moment of intense private temptation, he said, "My Lord, prison is more beloved to me than what they invite me to." Quran 12:33. That's not the line of someone numb. That's the strength of someone who feels everything, but chooses surrender anyway. So maybe Allah is doing the same for you, pulling back the desire to train the muscle of sabr, the kind that says, even if I feel nothing, I still choose purity. Even if I'm not validated, I still choose obedience. Even when the buzz is gone, I still choose Allah. That's not numbness. That's maturity. That's strength. And that's the kind of sabr that redefines who you are, not just in your own eyes, but in the eyes of the angels who are recording. So if you're in that dry, sparkless season right now, know this: you're not dying. You're being trained. Trained to love without depending, to submit without needing a feeling, to value yourself without needing to be wanted. And when Allah brings a desire back, it won't feel desperate. It won't feel artificial. It'll feel pure, earned, elevated. You asked for strength. You begged for clarity. You whispered in sujud for a clean love story, for Allah to pull you out of haram and guide you towards something real. And then the fire went out. The hunger vanished. Not just the lust, but the pull itself. And at first you thought, maybe it's shame. Then you blamed stress. But deep down, a different question crept in. What if this is the answer? Because here's the part no one warns you about. Sometimes Allah answers your du'a, not by adding more, but by emptying you out completely. That person you were addicted to, gone. That habit that was draining your soul, shut down. That urge that wouldn't let go, silenced. And not because you fought harder, but because Allah removed the fuel before it burned your soul any deeper to take you toward what you prayed for. Something inside you had to die first. A craving, a dependency, an identity that wasn't built on submission. Sometimes Allah doesn't just open the right door, He locks the wrong ones shut, so that when it gets hard later, you don't crawl back. You wanted healing, but you expected it to feel warm. You asked for marriage, but thought desire would come first. You wanted purpose, but didn't expect the path there to feel like being stripped down to the bone. But day, real day, isn't just about receiving. It's about becoming the person, worthy of carrying what you asked for. So maybe that silence where desire used to live was part of the transformation. The prophet once said, Allah tests those He loves. But sometimes the test isn't loss. It's quiet, not heartbreak, but rebuilding. Not because you were broken, but because you were about to become whole. Still confused? Still scared? Here's a thought. Maybe Allah didn't let you feel desire because you weren't ready to carry it with dignity yet. He pulled it back, not to humiliate you, but to preserve what little strength you had left. Because when the body goes quiet, the patterns get loud. You start to realize how many of your old habits were just loneliness in disguise. How many sins you called love, how often you chased dopamine and called it connection. That's when it clicks. Desire isn't the enemy. Untrained desire is. It's not that you drowned. It's that you kept swimming toward your own destruction. And Allah, out of mercy, pulled the tide away. So if your sex drive is gone, if you feel flat, confused, or strangely calm, don't panic. Don't call it failure. Don't assume you're broken. Sometimes Allah removes a feeling to build something deeper, not just in your body, but in your attention, your choices, your spiritual grip. And when He returns it, if He does, it won't feel random. It'll feel earned. It'll feel clean. And it'll finally fit the version of you He's been crafting in silence all along. If you've been scared of this quiet, scared of how long it'll last, then leave behind a duet in the comments. Not for your desire to come back, but for your heart to be ready when it does. Even if it's just, Ya Allah, make me pure in private, like I try to look in public. Because maybe someone scrolling by at 2 a.m. will see your words and decide not to give up.